Hey everyone, number 93 on the 100 Greatest Songs of All Time is I Am the Resurrection by the Stone Roses. I remember painting my dad's room, listening to the Stone Roses debut album. This wasn't when it came out, this was about 2 or 3 years after it came out. And I'd heard little bits and pieces, Fool's Gold, I Want to Be Adored, being the two kind of main songs of the album. I remember getting paint on the record player, or not the record player, Jesus, the CD player, and it was I think it was my brother's CD player, but I remember little moments, but I wasn't prepared for I Am the Resurrection. You can't be prepared for a song like that, a song that when you look back now, and whether this is with rose tinted glasses of the people who were there, this was a song that kind of defined a generation. It defined the bands that were to come after, like Oasis being the major one, but other bands as well, Inspired Carpets and different acts like that came out, Suede. But these young scallies from Manchester had like pushed through with this song, and there was two versions. There was the version on the radio, which was 3.5 minutes, and then there was the album version, which is many more minutes of John Squire on guitar being allowed to let rip, just go off, which he did on the second album, the big failure, the one that took too long to record and was unfortunately called The Second Coming, which was not, the best choice in the end to call your album when it was to be a flop. I don't mind the album, I'll be honest, but the backbeat and the guys that held it all together in Manny on the bass and Ren on the drums, just two absolute savages on their instruments. And they start I Am the Resurrection off at just this galloping pace, the bass riff. The drums is like, so nothing too complicated, but heavy. That sound is heavy. And I just picked this up to look at this. I just to show it off because it's such a beautiful bass guitar. I'm not really good at bass because I'm so out of practice, but it goes something like this. And on and on. And then he takes off in the chorus, or sorry, the solo part, and kind of speeds it up and adds these little bits and riffs in. He passed away sadly last year. An absolutely hugely underrated bass player, by the way. For his inventiveness, like he's obviously a very good technical bass player, but the inventiveness of his bass lines are standout. And I don't know much about him, but I can only imagine that he listened to a lot of Motown and he listened to obviously Paul McCartney and stuff like that. But everybody in this band were going for it on this song. Like Ian Brown starts off, down, down, you bring me down. I hear you knocking, but I can't get to sleep at night. And he goes off, and he's a very good lyricist as well, by the way. It's really important to say, but going back to like me painting a bedroom and destroying, CD players. This song like hit me like like nothing. It was like nothing I'd heard before because it was so euphoric, and the chorus of Ian Brown singing "I am the resurrection and I am the light" and the religious connotations that go with it, and the idea of like me as a 12, 13-year-old, whatever I was, listening to this song of like this man singing in these blasphemous ways. Now I wasn't very religious and I wasn't brought up very religious, but the idea of it was somehow still pretty cool that someone would come out and do this thing, make these statements. And like the Stone Roses have always had a place in my heart because they were part of my formal training, as it were, in music, and how a band who are kind of fuck ups really to be kind, I suppose, or to be unkind, got it together enough to play how they played and gigged, and it really only lasted one album, even though I told you I didn't really mind the second album. But they got together in reunions and stuff like that. But this was always the closing song, and Liam Brown was out of tune a lot of the time, and you forgave him. And sometimes John Squire's guitar was too loud, and you forgave him. And sometimes Rennie on the drums didn't forgive them and left before the final song. I remember on their reunion in the Netherlands, I think it was, and he left before I Am the Resurrection. So the crowd didn't get to hear it. So that would have been devastating if you were there, because a lot of people would have that as their favourite Stone Roses song, like myself. And there could have been another Roses song, like, not to spoiler alert on this, but there isn't another Roses song in the list. But this is one of those ones that just, it fits every mood, and it's a pick me up, and you can dig down into it, and it's a real good pop, jangly pop song. The Smiths obviously inspired it as well. Like I said already, stuff like Motown and the way the drums are held down, but you get in amongst the weeds then when there's a stop, and it comes back in, and the guitar, like I said, John Squire really goes off on these great licks and riffs, and the tones he uses on his guitar are so good. But there's a reason I kind of picked up the bass and played that bass line and stuff, because that's the moment. That's like one of those moments of a song, or almost the lead instruments in a song, the guide to what you have to do. Like it's just running down the keyboard. It's just going down the white notes. That's all it's doing. It starts off in a B. And it's just simplistic in that part. And then he goes, I should have learned that to play it, to show you how cool it gets. But like, the whole point of going back, and if you haven't heard it in a while, or if you've never heard it before, is to go back and maybe listen to it again and really listen to that. Like, obviously Ian Brown is there, and he's saying when he's saying, and I Am the Resurrection, but listen to those little bits in between, and the little notes that Manny is playing, because he plays very straightforward in certain parts, very like note, but then he's doing like the opening part is quite it's not really technical or everything, but it's kind of gallops along, and then, like I said, he goes a bit mad in the fade, the solo at the end and the fade out. But I wonder how much of it is improvised in the studio. I'd love to know how much of it was written beforehand, because obviously I don't mean as in John Squire was, obviously he wrote parts of those guitar solo beforehand, but like, had they practiced that, or was that like them just jamming? Because they seem like a very loose band. Shane Meadows made a documentary I think it was 2012 about the Stone Roses, and it shows them backstage in a reunion, or not backstage but in a practice room, and they're jamming like to songs that they know. The Waterfall, that's another one that could have crept in there in the top 100, but they seem very loose, like, and willing to push the other one on, and those little kind of, the bit of eye contact and the smile and the nod is to go, like, keep going, or it's your time to go, and whatever. And I love the band. I love that album. I think it's an amazing album. But like, I Am the Resurrection is one of the songs of a movement, not so much of a decade, because you've got a lot going on in the 90s, as in what song could be the song of the decade. But I Am the Resurrection was the song of like that baggy jeans wearing, bucket hat wearing, kind of dripping in paint, Sidney Pollack style, not Sidney Pollack, he's a director, but the aesthetic that's what what I think of as the Stone Roses, that kind of aesthetic, a stonewashed jeans and all that, and flares, and I am the resurrection. It's like Ian Brown basically saying I am Jesus, and who knows, maybe in those gigs in Spike Island and further afield, maybe he was the resurrection. Who knows? But thanks for joining me. See you later. Bye.